Welcome to the All of You podcast, where we believe healthy relationships are created by growing individually and pursuing a healthy relationship with yourself.
So let's take a deep breath. Settle in and grow together.
How you doing?
I'm doing so good. I just kind of laughed as I said that because it's comical. I think it's extra comical because we were on the mic, I think it was like 2 weeks ago. It might have even been last week. I can't even remember.
No, it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Yeah.
Our authenticity episode. And we both were not doing well. I think like peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship life. That was a valley. And I wouldn't say I'm peaking, but
You're on the up.
I feel, man, I could expand on how I feel for a while. I delusionally believe in what we're doing. And we don't have a lot to show for what we're doing. Like as far as money and as far as like truly being successful at it. But I have the craziest faith in this journey and that we're doing what we're called to do and we're on the right path. And like for some reason, I'm like, there's just good it's just around the corner and it's coming. And I have the most delusional faith to the point where I'm not freaking out all the time. I'm just like, yeah, I am doing this. I am a podcast host. I am a coach. That is what I do. That is who I am. And it's going to work out.
You're feeling embodied.
Feel embodied. And I
don't think everyone understands what that term means, by the way, like embodied. We don't have to go into it right now, but
yeah, I actually don't even think I'm the person that should be explaining what it means. Like someone could do it a lot better. But
I think that's negative self-talk.
As I was saying how hot I'm doing right now, there comes the negative self-talk.
You of all
I
people
talk about
know,
embodiment every single day.
Yeah, yeah. You know what embodiment. You literally help people embody it.
Oh my gosh, man.
And yet like, yeah, this is old narratives that come back to play.
Yeah, when I'll say it like this, like when I feel embodied, I feel like the version of myself I know I can be. And the best version of myself and really that higher version of myself. When I'm not embodied, I'm like the kind of scared past versions of me. And some of you might think that sounds absolutely ludicrous. Like what are you talking about all these different versions? But we all evolve and we change and we grow. And so as you do that, there are past versions that you can look back on of yourself.
100%.
So yeah, all of that to say, I'm doing good. I'm leaning a little bit more into posting on my own Instagram page, and which is like it's this necessary evil because if you don't tell people that you coach women, no one will actually know that you coach women. So I was like, well, I have to start posting on here. But oh my gosh, I had so many blocks to being able to do that. So much negative self-talk, limiting beliefs that I was literally in the trenches with a pickaxe trying to like get myself to the point where I was like, yeah, I can do this. And I've started doing it. And I'm like, oh, like sometimes once you are doing it, the action itself of doing it is what gets you to realize that you can do it. You just have to start.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that and going like, oh yeah, I actually can do this and I'm enjoying doing this. This is fun. So this week I'm here to report I'm doing really well. Next week could be a totally different story. Stay tuned. But yeah, that's what's going on over here. How are you?
I'm similar. I went through a really big funk when we put out that episode on authenticity, which I think was good. Like I enjoyed the episode. I thought it was important to be real. And I actually think, I don't even know if it was for anyone really. I think it was more for us, more for me. Like
I feel like you were like in confessional and I was the priest.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And thank you for playing that role. Thanks for holding space though. Like I needed, thank you to anyone who listened to that episode also for holding space for me, because I think there was a part of me that needed to say some of the things that I said on the microphone and say like, admit my struggle. It is allowing me to feel safer as a person who is talking on a microphone a lot. Like this microphone was starting to feel constricting to me. And yeah, just constricting. Like I was not feeling comfortable in this version of me. And the best way for me to feel comfortable is just to be really authentic. And so being able to say that stuff. But I'm feeling great now. Like I feel like I'm hosting, I don't know, probably this episode probably won't be out yet by the time I'll have hosted this workshop, but I'm hosting a workshop training on moving on from divorce with a method that I created for accepting your reality and where you're at, like breakups and divorce or just grief. And you helped me create it, and it was just a beautiful morning to me, like that when that stream of consciousness came. And yeah, I've had so many men join this group that I'm leading for guys who are going through divorce or breakups, and feel like there's been a lot of just positive reaction to the group, and that is empowering me to feel like I can step even more into this version of me that helps men work through difficult things. And there was a lot of negative self-talk or just insecurities, imposter syndrome that I was dealing with around that. And not to say they won't creep up again, but at the moment, like that was a trampoline moment. Like I was at the bottom and I just felt insecure. And sometimes when you just admit your insecurities, especially on a microphone to whoever, you don't even know who's listening, it can really be empowering to then be like, oh, like I'm safe. It's a sign of safety. When you can admit your insecurities, you're telling your body that you're safe. And so, yeah, I feel really safe right now. I feel really good and positive, and we have tons of calls happening now. Like more people are booking calls with us. So I feel our coaching is ramping up, and that's just so cool. And the coaching that we're doing has been so positive. Like some of the guys that I'm coaching, I'm seeing make massive breakthroughs in their relationships and how they perceive their relationships. And, you know, instead of being in an anxious state, kind of know what they want and need and move in that direction. And that's so cool. It's like just the funnest thing to watch the light bulbs turn on and them kind of process it and be like, yeah, I want this, or I want to go after this, and I'm going to move in this direction, and be confident and mature in that way.
Big things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been a long time coming. We've been at this for over a year now. At least the recording of the episode portion we've been at for over a year, and have seen very little fruit. And so just even starting to see a tiny little bud on a vine, we're just amped. I'm like, what? I see a bud on a vine. Actually, do buds grow on vines? Is that what is? Does that even make sense? I see a little fruit on a little tree.
Yeah.
We're going to run with that.
Yeah.
And I'm amped on this little fruit. I'm just so excited about it.
I think bud on a vine works, like a little flower on a vine.
Oh, maybe buds are flowers, not fruits.
Yeah.
I was seeing fruit, but
I don't know, like a small little fruit, like is kind of like a bud to start. I don't know the technical term. I'm not a farmer.
Someday I'd like to have some buds and
Farms?
vines and I wouldn't like some farms. One farm would be.
I would
more
love
than
an
enough.
avocado tree.
Yeah.
I want a couple avocado trees because I hear you have to plant them in pairs. If anyone's like a gardener,
That's not true.
really,
if you-
that's a myth.
Well, it is and it isn't. I forget who I was talking to about this, but I guess avocado trees, there's males and females, and you have to have both in order for them to have like good fruit. But as long as someone in your area has one, then you don't have to have it.
I don't know if someone in our David
has like 20 plant trees.
Avocado though?
He's got everything.
Yeah, he probably does. Yeah, we probably could grow avocado here. I would love it. Let's do like 10 avocado trees. I love avocados.
That seems a little unmanageable. We got to scale that back.
Okay.
Maybe 2.
We'll start with 2.
But I appreciate the dreamer, and you want 10.
We have one orange tree that's dying, so maybe I need to learn to take care of that first.
Yeah, that's a big lesson we've had all of last year was God telling us, you got to take care of what you got before I give you more.
Totally.
So we got to handle the orange tree before the avocado.
Yeah. We're close. We're getting there. Our yard was a disaster, and we've tamed it to the point where it's been more manageable. But the house is still tons of projects, so we're still on our way of taking care of what we got. Big things.
That was quite the introduction.
Yeah, big things.
Big things.
So lately, we've been discussing a lot of relationship topics and personal growth topics, kind of all over the place, which I guess this podcast is kind of all of it, right? All of you, all your emotions, everything about this human experience. It's kind of designed to be all over the place from episode to episode. But I've been feeling like I want to reel it back in a little bit. And because there's just so many topics, like when we think about a topic, and we like to be topical because we like to have a point to our episodes, and we like you, the listeners, to hopefully be able to get something out of it when it pertains to a certain area of your life. And also just our conversations, we're always kind of on a topic, like when we talk about things. So some of them spiral a little bit off topic, but when we're discussing topics, I was thinking of like all these kind of relationship ins and outs, or just these themes in relationship, resentment, defensiveness. Like, but when I boil it all down, it all comes back to healing. And it's kind of how we start our podcast in the intro. I don't remember what we say now, but something along the lines of like, we believe that the best relationships are from doing the inner work yourself. And so I wanted to talk about that and just go into why that's our like I would say that's our mission statement. If we had a mission statement, if somebody comes to us for coaching, my number one thing is, let's start with you and doing your inner work. Because if you don't do your inner work, there's no healing somebody else.
Right. And why I'm excited to go back to that, a few different reasons. First one being, talking about healing is probably my favorite topic, specifically healing triggers. I could talk about for like 17 hours straight and have a really good time. But ever since we posted about the mental load and responsibility around the house, and we kind of had that TikTok go viral on that, I have had more women reaching out. And the question that I get is something along the lines of like, how do I make my husband help more? How do I get my husband to want to change? How do I get my husband, like, it's all about trying to change their partner. And you can't change someone. You can't change them by convincing them, by begging them, by pleading with them, by giving them an ultimatum. Like, that isn't the effective method to get someone to change.
Let's start there. Yeah? Like,
let's start there.
Why? So I think people would be like, well, then what's the point? Like, they're never going to change on their own. Like that's a frustrating, I guess what I want to say is that's a frustrating reality for some people to accept, that you can't
100%.
control or change somebody else.
Yeah, that's super frustrating. But ultimately, you're going to struggle with mental tension the longer it takes for you to accept that everything outside of you is out of your control. The
Yeah.
only things in your control are you. And when we try, and Lord knows I have, to control things outside of us, we get frustrated, we get resentful, we get bitter and angry, and we're like, why can't it just be this way? And it's like this lack of acceptance of what is and what we actually can control. And it's a recipe for living with mental tension.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line fact is we can't make anyone do anything. It's their choice. And I think that's actually really, in the reverse side of it, it's really beautiful. No one can make me do things. And I'll try to not go too off topic, but I actually think that in my mind, I've flipped that script into being very empowering, that no one can make me do anything. I choose what I do. And it's kind of this way that I stay out of victim mode, which is very easy to slip into for me. Like, especially with like being a stepmom, sometimes I can be like wanting control and don't have it, whether it's of my schedule or whatever. And then I like kind of will slip into this like everything's outside of my control. And then I have to flip it and go, I'm in control of me. I chose this life. I chose to become a stepmom. I can choose how I want to spend my time. I have the power because I have control of me. But going back on topic, that was like my little side rant. When it comes to being in a relationship and struggling with your partner, I can highly empathize with wanting to be able to control your partner and get them to change, especially when you're putting in the work and you're growing and changing and you're like, look at, that lazy couch potato. Like, why isn't he doing anything? He needs to step up. He needs to do the work. Like, I get the frustration in that to my core. I can be empathetic, but it's not helpful.
Yeah.
It's just straight up not going to help you. And it certainly is not going to help your relationship dynamic if you're like when I nag you about something, it's like it postpones it by 3 more weeks.
Yeah.
Like the moment you feel like I've been nagging, I don't know. Is this conscious? Because if I nag, you like really put off doing what I've been nagging about.
So people don't respond well to nagging because it's an attempt to control. So no one will do what you want them to do if you come at it at the angle of you should do this or logic. Like logic isn't going to change anyone's mind. The only thing people do is respond to pleasure. Like if you look, like people respond to feelings and they go where they feel pleasure. They go towards the ice cream because it tastes good. They go towards the couch because it feels good to sit. So the only way to change your brain or somebody like your partner is ever going to change is when they realize they're going to get more pleasure from doing the thing. So if you positive reward me, it will happen a lot faster than if you try to manipulate me or control me in a negative, naggy way. So like, yeah, it's not subconscious, but it is, you're fighting against the way my brain is wired. My brain is wired in a way to go towards pleasure, not pain. And so if you come at me with like, if you associate doing the dishes with negativity, I'm going to associate the dishes with negativity. But if I do the dishes and you're really thankful and you're very like encouraging, then I associate it in my brain as a positive thing, You're
kind of like a dog with like treats.
Yeah, we are.
Huh.
I mean, if you look at it, like the people who go to the gym every day and work out, it's because they have so much positive reinforcement from the way they look.
And
you
feel,
know?
yeah.
Yeah. And
hey friends, wanted to interrupt you really quick to let you know that if you're looking to go deeper into your healing journey or just want support, I offer coaching services for women and Dave coaches men.
so feel free to go to the link in our bio and book a call with us. We'd love to meet you. And if you're enjoying this episode, please tap that subscribe button.
And now back to the show.
In order to get up early and go to the gym every single day, to do that, you have to fight against this pattern that you've created where the couch is more comfortable than the gym or the bed is more comfortable than the gym. Some people believe the gym is more comfortable because they realize, well, I'm more comfortable all day long in my clothes when they fit better. I'm more you've rewired your brain to realize that pleasure actually does come from the gym. Pleasure actually, like when I practice yoga in the morning, I am learning that my brain is so much calmer and I feel like I already gave myself what I need for the day. So now I can be of better service to others. And so like that's a very pleasurable state of being for me throughout the day. But like getting up and going and doing it is really not pleasurable in the moment. Like I'd rather stay in bed and it's cold outside, but I like to go outside and do it in the cold because it's kind of like it just gives me something from the sun and the birds and the air. Like it meets needs of mine that I do associate with pleasure. So yeah, kind of a little rant there, but
no, actually does make sense.
Yeah, so when we can't change anyone else, like it just isn't going to work. And when you realize that, you can start to move. I think I've heard it somewhere, I can't remember, but you start to move more like, I think this was in one of my meditations actually from my buddy Jacob. And when you move with the water, like it's like you're moving like water through a river, instead of like the masculine is like the rocks and the banks of the river. And when you are always in your masculine and you're always trying to force everything, you can become, it can be really hard to work with others because you don't realize that they're also a rock and you're a rock and now you're moving and you're trying to bash into them. And so you have to become a little bit more like water and move with the flow sometimes through, and pivot around people. So maybe your partner sucks and you can leave them or you can accept them and then try to influence their change by changing yourself first.
Showing them that healing and living a healthy, better life is the better option.
Yeah, and let's like stop there for a second too, because so like we started like, I kind of want to like almost chapter this episode, but like you can't control others, so then you have to accept them and then you can influence others. But this is why healing yourself is the route, because if we're like when we were dating, let's say, I ended up kind of taking some courses first, but let's say you did. And
well, I actually think that I know where you're going with this, and we should maybe just tell the actual story.
Okay.
Instead of reverse it.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. I just didn't want to paint you in a bad light.
No, I've already painted myself in all the lights. Like the truth is,
the podcast is called All of You.
Yeah, truly. There's not much left at this point. You guys all know this. When we got together, our fights were so toxic, out of control, awful. And we broke up. Dave took a class, not a class, it was a 9-month program. And Dave started healing. Dave started growing. And we got back together. And
I spent a good amount of money to fix myself. Like
thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I needed some serious work.
Yeah. And so as he healed, we get back together and I have the expectation everything's going to be all hunky dory. and we get in the same fight, Dave's responding maturely and so much better. And I'm just straight up not. I was still my old self. I hadn't done any work. I hadn't healed. And that was the biggest, oh shit moment probably of my life, because it was the moment I realized I'm playing a real big role in this. And that's how we influenced each other. That's how you got me to change, was not by telling me, hey, you need to go do some work on yourself. It was you showing up so different that it was undeniable that I needed to go do work. And then immediately I checked myself into the women's version of the same program that you were in. And I was off spending thousands of dollars to work on myself. And I think I share that to say, we don't change people by telling them, you need to change. We influence them through our change.
Yeah. And I just want to plant a flag in that and say there's all different kinds of relationships. So some people are like where we were dating. And had you not changed, I was prepared to end the relationship because we were so early on that it was like, well, I just grew like, years of maturity in a very short time. I went through a growth spurt of maturity level, like the biggest one I've ever had in my life, I would say, from a maturity. There was one when I was a teenager, but this one I'd say was even bigger. Healing childhood trauma, rewiring patterns in my brain, understanding what abuse is and emotional abuse, and how like it was just a massive, massive growth spurt for me. So when now I'm this new version of myself, and you haven't been doing this work yet, and so it was like, okay, are you gonna come with me or are you gonna stay where you're at? Because if you're gonna stay where you're at, this relationship probably isn't gonna work this early on, you decided to come with, and I'm forever grateful to you for that. But
go ahead. I would just say too, it wasn't even just me signing up for the course. You were like, that's great that you signed up for the course, but I actually need to see that you do the work while you're in the course. And I need to actually see results for me to stay. Like, you straight up told me that, which good on you. To be honest,
I've never seen somebody take a course so seriously.
When I was studying, my notebook is thick.
Yeah, I don't think you missed a day, and you went on to take more classes and courses and do more work beyond that.
With growing after that.
Yeah, we both did. We both fell in love with personal growth, and that's just who we are. But I want to say, there are a lot of people who are married and who have been married for 10 years and they're 32 or 33. Like, if you hit your 30s and you've been with someone for 10 or 15 years, it's gotta be like, it would be hard because you are changing, and either you're going to not allow each other to change, or you're going to have to accept new versions of each other. And we will probably have to do this when we're 40. We'll be different than we are now. Well, I'm almost 40 already.
It's not that
it's
long
only like a year and a half away. When I'm 40, I'm gonna be way different. But
Speedy Gonzalez over there.
Okay, maybe 50. But we've had to do that already in our relationship, so we're prepared for this work. But that is a lot of the work, is understanding. I mean, this is kind of internal family systems. This is enmeshment. This is, you have a grid-locked relationship where you play this role, they play this role, and then one person changes and becomes a new version of themselves. Or you have a kid. I mean, this is so common with marriages and kids. It's not even funny. Like, it is funny because people who are in relationships think they're the anomaly. When you're having relationship problems, you're like, well, no one else is having these problems. Like, this is weird. And it's like, no, this is actually freaking textbook. Like, so many people in your situation fall in this same trap in life, you know?
Yeah, we're just the only weirdos who get on a mic and talk about it.
Yeah, and that's why we do, because we want to show you like you are seen in this, you know? These triggers, these traumas, these fights over the toilet paper roll going on the wrong way, or the dishes, or I mean, most common one of all time probably is how much time do you spend outside of the house? If you're in a marriage and you have kids, do you fight about how much time you get away from the home, like your free time? You know, that's like a huge, because the time is limited. And so then there's fighting over well, you got to go with your friends last weekend and I had to take care of the kids, and all these fights are super, super normal. Now, I'm not saying they're okay. I'm not saying that we should accept that as a part of our reality. Let's learn how to work through them. But I'm saying that it's normal, as in like you're not the only one that goes through this. So a super common one is one person grows and does the work and you're married. So like if I did that work but we were married and you didn't want to do that work, that's so hard. And the reason I'm bringing this back home to the original conversation is the reason that we say you have to do your inner work first is because, let's say, like when I did that inner work and went through that change, let's say we were already married. How much more inner work would it have taken for me to be able to be patient with you if you dragged your feet for years?
Way harder, because it's a lot trickier to have the out when you're married. Like I'll say it like this. When we're dating, I don't think there is a problem, as bad as this sounds coming from me, with you saying, hey, if you don't do this work, you're not the right person for me and I'm going to move on. Like, yeah, I didn't love hearing that.
Well, we weren't committed yet.
But also we weren't married. So I don't think there's anything wrong in you saying that.
Yeah.
I would actually say, if you're listening to this and you're dating someone and they're not willing to do the work, like, it is the right thing to say, like, hey, I'm looking for someone that takes accountability, has a growth mindset, and is willing to work on their triggers so that when we're in conflict, things don't explode, because I want to live a really peaceful, good life.
Yeah, you're basically
you probably should say that if you're dating, right? So I don't hold that against you. But when you're married and you've got 15 years in and a house and kids and entanglement, in-laws, like when you have all of that, it's a little harder to be able, like, I don't know if I would say it's necessarily I'm not going to say whether it's right or wrong to say that. That's an individual choice, but it's a little bit messier. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, but that's why it starts with you. If you're the person that's growing, because if your partner never does the work and you don't, believe in divorce, or you marry to them. And so I'm not saying divorce is right or wrong or whatever. That's not the point of this conversation. But if your goal is to stay with someone and try to, and you will eventually influence their change. But here's what happens. You do the work and you're going to trigger the shit out of their insecurities, because people meet at a certain level and then they're attracted to each other. And then if one person grows and matures and they're just going to get hotter and sexier and more confident. And when they heal their shame, when you heal the shame, you just move differently in this world. Like you smile bigger. My photos of me 5-10 years ago are sad. Like there's a shame over my face.
Actually, just want to like plug this. I keep trying to get Dave to post on his Instagram. Like, people post their like weight loss before and afters. I want him to post his shame loss before and afters, because his before photos are like unrecognizable when I look at him. I'm like, there's literally no light in your eyes. You didn't even have like dimples in your smile. Like
I didn't smile.
It
I
is
didn't.
crazy.
My smile is like this. Like I didn't know how to smile.
Yeah.
I literally just couldn't. You know how people practice their smile in the mirror?
Yeah.
I had too much shame to do that. I had I felt like that was wrong. You know, I felt like it was wrong. Like I could never get in front of a camera. A camera was like the devil. Like the camera was like the lights in the camera are like a spotlight and on me, and I would just feel the shame, you know? And it's just a mirror reflecting back to you what you really feel about yourself. And I just didn't have that inner light, that inner confidence to be able to say. But if you do this work and you do the inner work, it's going to trigger your partner really bad, because now what? Now they don't feel good enough to be with you. So they might claw back at you to try to be like what you think, because you read those personal growth things or you follow Jay Shetty on Instagram, like you think you're better than me now, or, oh, you set boundaries now. That's a huge one. Oh, boundaries. You're going to set boundaries with me? Like if you're in that environment where your partner's doing like doesn't believe in boundaries and respecting your boundaries, you're in a really tough spot. And I want to bring it home a little bit to like, this is why we say it starts with you. Because if you're the one that wants to do the work, you're going to have to realize and be aware of all this and really develop an awareness of, if I grow, I'm going to trigger my partner's insecurities. If they're not growing, I'm going to have to try to influence them in growth, and I can't nag them to grow. I can't nag them to read a self-help book. Like that doesn't work. They have to want to read the book. And you also might at some point have to choose yourself and be willing to grow apart. And I'm not saying that means divorce, but I'm saying like emotionally, like, you know, and that's kind of what typically will happen anyway. The person with the shame will eventually get so frustrated, they'll either grow or they'll just end up divorcing you. And there's nothing you can really do about that. That's why, but even going through that takes a lot of growth and maturity to let your partner walk out the door, to let your partner leave you knowing they're in their shame and they won't grow. You know, it just all comes back to you doing your work to be able to handle whatever they choose to do. If they choose to move with you, great. If they choose to leave you and they get frustrated and their insecurities get triggered and they shame spiral and they do start doing damage, you then have to set the boundaries. And that just is a lot of inner work to be able to accept that you can't change someone and still choose growth. Because not everyone has a dynamic with us like us where we both are insanely passionate about our own individual growth. And man, I have a lot of compassion for that.
Yeah, I also want to say that when you, like, I see it as there's really like 3 options. And it's like, you know, those like dioramas that hang over a baby's bassinet? I forget what they're called, but they're like little dangly things on them, right? Like
a mobile.
Mobile. Yeah. So you have your current mobile. And if you don't change anything, it just stays as it is. So if your situation is not good, it stays not good. When you change one of the dangly things on the mobile, it's going to spin differently.
Throws the weight off of the whole thing.
Yes, that change, it might spin for the better, it might spin for the worse, but it's going to start spinning. But if your current mobile sucks, I believe it's worth spinning the mobile. And why I believe it's worth it is if you're spinning the mobile because you are growing personally and you are maturing, that means you are starting to be able to handle the situations better. And that growth that you have within you is either going to allow you to be able to go, however my partner is, that's his responsibility. If he wants to act like that, he's welcome to. I'm going to go in the other room and I'm going to go do my thing. Like, you're able to separate him, and I'm just saying him because I'm her, but like you're able to separate from it and kind of say like, your triggers are not my responsibility. I'm out, and not out of the marriage, but like I can walk away and I can stay in my truth and stay in my peace. And you can still find your peace and your center, even in a kind of crappy situation. Or like, he can be inspired by it and he can start growing, or you can grow so much that you leave and then you find a partner who's actually at the growth and maturity level that you're at. But I don't really actually see a losing option in doing the work and growing.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a choose your hard.
Yeah, and personal growth is just the mission. It literally, I would define it as maturity. Like healing to me is maturing. You know, like you're healing your arrested development. If you think of what healing is on a base level and personal growth, emotional maturity, like they all are interchangeable words to me. I don't really, personal development to me is healing, you know? Because what you're doing is you're expanding your capacity and depth as a human being to understand others and connect with others and all that. So like I'll break it down into a little bit easier terms to understand, but if you are arrested in development in a certain area of your life, like I'll share one of mine. I was really insecure when it comes to the thought of other men being attracted to you or you being attracted to other men. Like that was an insecurity of mine. And this played itself out in several relationships that I had previous to you and just my own arrested development as a child. There are key moments in my life when I was a younger boy where I was impacted by people around me that caused me to have a wound inside of me, like an emotional wound. You call it arrested development, call it emotional wound, like they're all interchangeable words to me. Lack of maturity, whatever. So as an adult, I was acting like a 12-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy when these wounds were triggered. And so that's just arrested development. This can happen in any area of your life. It can be over. For me, another one of mine was time when you were running late or the girls are running late for specifically to get to school or work in the morning, because that was such a pain point for me as a child that I would get really triggered. Like my body remembered these experiences. So then this is, trauma, arrested development, all to me the same thing. It's just a moment in time. Your body remembers your experience. Of course, that's literally the difference between me and you is not just male and female, but our experience, our life experience. That's why we have different personalities and we're shaped by how we experience the world. So I was arrested in development as a kid, and then now as an adult having these issues that are affecting my relationship. So healing these are important for us growing up and maturing to be 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old. You don't want to be a 60-year-old still dealing with issues that were from your trauma when you were 12. If your partner isn't into personal growth or isn't into maturing, you now have a partner that is not going to change or mature the rest of their life unless they do some work, right? And like that, I don't know, I'm just trying to break that science down. Do you agree with all that?
Yeah. Here's how I would put it, kind of my little hot take. And I would say probably through the lens of like, when I think of how I've healed the most, it's been through my triggers. And that's why we celebrate when we get triggered, which used to really piss me off. You'd be like, "Oh, you're triggered. Let's celebrate." And I'd be like, "Rrr." But that's besides the point.
I wouldn't like bust out a cake or like
It
pour
was
the
like
champagne.
a little bit short of that. Sometimes you would full on put your hands in the air and be like,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
I'm like,
found it.
I'm like wanting to hit you. But anyways, I am passionate about talking about triggers because for me, they have been the key of where so much of my healing has come from, because they reveal the parts that need to be healed. Because when we get triggered, what comes out of us is the reaction that we would have at the time that we were wounded from, like, where that trigger is coming from. And so if we're talking about when you were, your time trigger from your childhood, the 5-year-old in you might be coming out and your reaction is that of a 5-year-old, right? And so when we talk about healing, like, you're arrested in development to that age of 5 years old in that area. And so now we've got awareness of this, right? And that's when we can actually go in and do that work to start healing and feeling those feelings and rewiring our brains to handle the situation differently. And not only that, what comes from your trigger is what comes from my triggers is where I found all of my limiting beliefs. When I'm triggered, they just come out of the woodworks and I just start massively writing them down. And so then I've got awareness of like, okay, I have all these either core beliefs or limited beliefs, a little bit of both most of the time. And I can go, do I want to believe this? Do I actually think this is true? Because my subconscious thinks this is true and I'm acting as this is my truth, but it's really just a limited belief that isn't true. That can be something like, I'm not good enough. That can be a core belief that you hold. And when you hold that, you keep yourself back from all these opportunities in your life. And so without triggers, it's kind of hard to find all of these nuggets that you can use to grow. So you get triggered, you figure out where you're arrested in development from, you figure out what you need to heal, you figure out what your limiting beliefs are. You also figure out your negative self-talk. What's that talk track in your mind when you're triggered? What's it saying? A lot of the times mine is like a shame spiral of all these negative things about myself that if I told them out loud to you, you would be like, I can't believe that. Holy, like, and you'd be like, you're way off. And I'm like, yeah, that's the talk track. My triggers is what allows me to see the talk track. And when you can see the talk track, you can begin to go, whoa, I got some rewiring I need to do. And you can flip the script on that talk track and you can start getting your brain to believe what is true, what is good, what God wants you to believe about yourself, what He believes about you. So through your triggers, that's where the healing journey started for me. And I think that will always be the crux of how I talk about healing, because those are the most telling moments and they suck. Like, they totally suck. I look back at the times that I've reacted from my triggers and my wounds and I'm mortified. I'm so embarrassed. And good.
Yeah.
Good. Because I don't want to feel that embarrassment anymore so much that I have no choice but to heal.
Yeah, and that's the difference. Like, that moment is in time is the difference between someone that will mature and someone that won't. Is that split second decision when you are triggered and you feel your nervous system react to a situation and you want to become self-aware and dissect it from like a standpoint of maturity and correct your body. Like, I'm running late in the morning. My body starts to get activated. I can go, hey, whoa, take a deep breath. Like, you're okay. We're not late. We're 5 minutes late. There's no, like, even if we are, reacting isn't going to help right now, or whatever the reality of the situation is. Like, get back into reality and then not react and like start, yelling at my kids for like, get your shoes on, whatever, because then they get activated. And I've done this enough times where I've harmed them in this way. You've seen it where like if I at all when I'm about to leave raise my tone of voice or am harsh to them, like they might start crying.
Yeah, and then we went from like 2 minutes late to 20 minutes late.
Yeah, because they have a wound.
Them.
They have a wound here from me. Like and also that's a whole nother thing of parenting and understanding how you've wounded your kids already is huge, because then you can start to heal them and help them heal. But yourself, you got to heal first, and it all starts with you. Like, and so that's super important to notate when you're triggered, that you have a moment of time where you can correct yourself and get back to reality, or you can the ego wants to start to blame the things around you and go, the kids need to hurry, or this needs to change. These things need to change. Like things in my life need to change, or, so if you're triggered that your partner's not growing, or you are, whatever your trigger is, you just have a split second decision to do the right thing or start to place the blame. If you go down the blame route, you're lost, you're gone. And you're probably acting out of a younger version of yourself. And now you're going to cause some damage. Like my 5-year-old self, my 8-year-old self, like you've seen him, he can cause some damage.
Oh,
like he has some rage in him. Like, and so I've healed this inner child in this boy to the point where I can talk to him and I can go, hey, buddy, like we're not back on Cameo Drive. Like we're here, we're here. We're in this house. Like I even will tell my clients, and this was told to me, that you say, this is my wife, not my mother. This is my wife, not my mother. Because that, like, you start to, replay these moments as a child and your parents doing certain things to you, and your body reacts, and then all of a sudden old self shows up and it's a child. And so maturing is so important, but it starts with you maturing if you ever want to be able to help or lead somebody, or I should say influence them to change as well, because they will or they won't. If you start growing, it's almost like emotionally you are, the analogy would be we're playing soccer and we're at the same caliber, and then all of a sudden I get 10 times better and I'm just schooling you. It's no longer fun for you. I'm no longer a good sparring partner and a practice partner for you. So you're going to quit and give up, or you're going to level yourself up to rise to the occasion. And when you choose growth in a relationship, that's what you're doing. You're literally raising the stakes, and you can score from any angle. You know what's happening when you're in a fight now. Like psychologically, you know what's happening, and you don't react, and you start showing up differently. And they're like, whoa, you used to juke left and then score from the right. Now you can spin, move, and go around me and score. And like, I can't stop that move. And so you start to just get into this like mode where it's like, you're distancing in the relationship. And now there's decisions to be made, but from their end, not yours. You're just choosing growth and maturity. Like, I don't know how you argue with that's not the mission of life. Like how could anyone argue against growth and maturity? Like what would be the devil's advocate there to stay immature?
I think it would be like and I'm going to date myself, but like the YOLO attitude. Like you only live once, so live fast, live hard, live fun, and like who cares? Like send it attitude. And I think I had that. I can talk about this because I had it. It's a very selfish attitude to look at towards life, but you can have it.
I didn't even think about that. So some people would actually advocate for YOLOing and not and that would be I guess if that I guess that could be somebody's
like
stance.
That's probably one end of the spectrum, but then I also think that I would say, and I have no data to back this, The vast majority of people are in the camp of, I don't need to change. I'm good as I am. Like, I don't think a lot of people are like, and I say that actually having been in that camp too, before, as I mentioned earlier, I had that realization when you came back from doing your work and were handling things better and I wasn't. That's what gave me the aha of like, oh, my shit does stink. I truly did not think my shit stank. Like, I was like, I'm perfect and look at me go. It's wonderful being perfect. So I think that most people would fall into that camp. Probably you got the YOLOers, you got the I'm good as I amers, and then you got the growers.
That's actually a good insight. I didn't realize that there was other camps than the I want to grow. I forgot. It's been so long
We
since
don't leave the house a lot, babe. We gotta go like out in the world.
I've been in another. Well, even when we go out, we go to like yoga or like other places
and
where
Chili's.
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of places where people don't want to grow or go deeper, and I would literally just ask that question to anyone. Like if I was in a relationship with someone that didn't want to grow, I would say, well, are you curious about the ways that you negatively impact me? I mean, I don't even know if that would even work because they would just be like, what do you mean I negatively impact you? I don't negatively impact you. And it would just be defensiveness.
100%, because that was me.
Yeah.
When you would start sentences with like, hey, when you do this, it negatively impacts me. My defensiveness was chomping at the bit. Like it just grinded my gears.
Man, it's
when
tough.
You would say that.
It's tough. Like the relationship is if you grow and your partner doesn't, the relationship will kind of die. So if you find your partner getting really insecure about your growth, you have two options. You could stop growing for them to stay connected to them, which I think a lot of people choose that. A lot of people want to grow, but they choose not to because they know they'll outgrow their partner and they know their partner is not going to follow them. You know, I think we do that in friend circles. I think we do that in we mute ourselves to keep connection with others. Because if you actually write that book that you've always wanted to write and it does blow up and your friends, like, you know, how are they going to respond to that? Or if you do start that podcast, how are the people around you going to respond to that? If you do start reading a book a month and start growing, are you going to end up leaving your partner behind kind of? And so we just stay connected to the people we have and instead of growing. I don't know. It's such a tough concept, but if you do heal and grow, I do believe that you can stay connected and love someone who's not growing.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
And that's an option.
Yeah. And it should be the option if you have kids and you've committed, like, you know,
I would say that like, that's the point of you growing is their bullshit's going to be their bullshit. You can't change their bullshit, but you can change yours. And in that you learn how to no longer feel like their bullshit is yours. If that makes sense. Like you can actually like separate from it and be like, that's them, I'm me. And when they go and often do these things that I don't like, I remove myself. Whether that, and that can look like a lot of different things. That doesn't mean from the relationship, but there are ways that you can still grow and keep yourself safe, keep yourself not actually feel as like, I just go back to this like word of like mental tension, where like your thoughts are just so overwhelming of like focused on this dynamic and what they're doing. And like, there is actually a way to just like let go, release, and better yourself so that even in this dynamic where you're like, I don't love what he's up to, you can still love what you're up to and who you are and how you're showing up. And you can still be proud of that. And you can emotionally distance yourself enough to where their actions don't have as much of an effect on you. So like that is totally an option.
Yeah, you can still love you. I mean, you can. There's still a channel open for love there. I think that I'm always going to advocate for both partners growing because I think it'll deepen the connection and the love, and you can get to more depth in your dynamic and heal and negatively impact each other less. And you don't have to have as many boundaries necessarily, but you can still love. I mean, and no one's perfect. So you're always going to have some boundaries, but the better you show up, the less boundaries I have to have with you and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So, but even if one person's not doing their work, I mean, yeah, I think it's still really noble and probably the mission, especially if you're married and have kids, that you can stay in love and keep that connection.
Absolutely.
Should we do some life hacks?
Yes. So my life hack for this week, I'm actually going to just play into what I mentioned earlier on the episode, is my trick for staying out of like a victim mindset, which spirals me into a direction I don't want to go, is to remember I have control of me and use that as a way to empower myself and be able to say, like, I have the power to choose how I spend my time, how I spend my money, how I love someone who has access to me, who is in my life, who is not in my life. I actually even have control of like how much money I make. I have control of where I live and what, to a degree. And you know,
do.
I do,
Yeah.
as long as it's, yeah, I do actually.
You
like
do.
we have control of everything that is related to us. And that's actually a lot. And when I remember that, it helps me to feel less small and like a victim mindset of like, I can't do anything about this and I don't like it. And it helps me to go like, no, how I react to this situation, 100% on me. And I'm going to react well. Watch this. It's such an empowering trick. So that's my hack this week.
Love it. Mine is in a total different direction, but these are kind of just wild, just random fun things. Mine is the app Marco Polo. I'm telling you, not a lot of people would want to use this app, and I've found very few friends that actually, especially men, that will actually use it. But it's so good for keeping up connections if you're busy in your life with kids and stuff. It is truly, especially if you pay for Marco Polo Plus, you can fast forward times two. But basically, it's a FaceTime voicemail that you leave. It doesn't take any storage on your phone. It's all cloud-based. So you don't like have to worry about like if you send, it's like the same thing as if you would send video text to each other, but since it's not cloud-based, or since it's not like stored and doesn't take a long time to send, you can listen live. Or so I could send you a video voicemail, but you can watch it live and respond live, or you can wait and respond in 5 days, 10 days, it doesn't matter. So like if people are living on the other side of the country and you want to keep up, it's a wonderful thing. Like one of my buddies and I only communicate on Marco Polo, and it's been the reason our relationship is as good as it is. And so like if I'm going through something, like I'll send him in the moment in real time. He'll get back to me in a couple days with some feedback, or maybe even listen live and respond, but it's not like intrusive. If I call him and he's at work, he can't answer. So then we just would never talk. It leaves a lot more opportunity to like flow with like almost like audio messages, but you also get to, and there's a second reason why it's good, because it's not just talking to each other and building connection. It's also getting decent at talking to the camera. And talking to a camera is actually like a great skill that's needed in life, I think now with Zoom and how people work. So as you develop your own, like I was saying earlier, if you get out of your own shame of talking to a camera, it really can open up your personality and allow you to like feel less shame in your life. It's a good exercise that's actually kind of healing. So I would encourage people to get on there and talk to each other and build connections, even if you're busy. If you have somebody that you want to connect with that you don't find time to connect with often, I bet you if you did Marco Polo, you'd talk to him like 5 times as much. That's all I'm saying. That should be an ad, but it's good. It's a great app. Okay.
All right. And that's all.
Love you.
Love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.